Much attention is on the president's press conference set for tomorrow over key state affairs and conflicting issues, ranging from medical reform and controversy over the First Lady to a special investigation into the death of a Marine. Ceasefire talks have resumed involving Israel and Hamas, but the two sides reportedly haven't been able to narrow their differences. This comes amid fears mounting for people in Rafah. South Korea's car exports hit a fresh high in April, thanks to greater demand for green cars and SUVs, especially in the North American market. It's May 8, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. President Yoon Suk-yeol is set to hold a press conference tomorrow as he marks the 2-year anniversary of his inauguration this Friday. This couldn't have come at a more sensitive time when there's a series of conflicting issues, while key reform tasks lie ahead as the president prepares for his next 3 years. Our presidential office correspondent Kim Do-yeon stirs us off.
As President Yoon Suk-yeol prepares for his first live press conference in 21 months on Thursday, there are two questions he's most anticipated to face. One about the death of a young Marine and one about First Lady Kim Jong-un. The Democratic Party of Korea pushed through a special probe bill to investigate government interference in the probe of a Marine's death during last year's flood rescue operations. The top office suggested vetoing the bill, especially with the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials already on the case. As for the First Lady, the prosecution recently opened an investigation after she accepted a luxury bag in 2022 as a gift. President Yoon has recently vowed to address these issues himself and not his aides.
사법 리스크가 있다면은 제가 해야 될 문제이지, 제 문제를 또 저에 대해서 뭐 제기된 게 있다면 제가 설명하고 풀어야지 민정수석이 할 일은 저는 아니라고 생각합니다.
While these two issues may take all the headlines, with an hour set for the Q&A session, there will be many more.
Before the press conference, the president will first explain the government's policy direction and progress over the past 2 years through a video message from the office, and will also discuss the plans for national governance over the next 3 years.
In fact, the message Yoon will have on doctors as the collective action prolongs will be a key issue as well. In addition, he's likely to address 3 of his other reformation plans: the pension system, labor, and education, along with diplomatic issues and inflation. President Yoon Suk-yeol hasn't had any official engagements in the 3 days leading up to the press conference on Thursday, seemingly in full prep mode. An official said the president asked his aides to prepare to focus on the questions that the public would really be curious about. The press conference comes following the ruling PPP's crushing defeat in the general election in April, and as President Yoon vowed to enhance communication with the public. He's met reporters in person and briefly took questions on multiple occasions since then as well. In the meantime, the DP called for the president to use this opportunity to approve the 250,000 won, or around $180 cash handout that it's pushing for, and accept the Marine probe.
I have high expectations. I hope that effective measures for national governance reform will be put in place.
The ruling People Power Party's interim leader Hwang Woo-yeol said in an interview with a local radio station that this will be an opportunity for President Yoon to get closer to the public, and Yoon's honest answers would dispel any of the rumors that surround him. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, Israel is taking part in further talks over in Egypt regarding a possible truce with Hamas after rejecting an earlier proposal that the latter had accepted. Our Kim Bo-kyung with the details.
Calling it far from meeting its demands, Israel has not accepted a ceasefire deal proposed by Egypt and Qatar, which Hamas has agreed to. In a statement on Tuesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the latest truce proposal from Hamas was designed to torpedo the entry of Israeli forces into Rafah, which did not happen. While saying it's necessary to put military pressure on Hamas for the return of its own hostages, he firmly stated that Israel would not accept a proposal that endangers its own people's security.
Israel cannot accept proposals that endanger the security of our citizens and the future of our country. Therefore, I've instructed the labour ranks that went to Cairo continue to stand firm on the conditions necessary for the release of our hostages, continue to stand firm on the essential requirements for guaranteeing Israel's security.
Netanyahu's words come after Hamas declared on Monday evening that it has agreed to a ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, Israel have pushed on with their military operations in Rafah, seizing control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing on Tuesday morning. To this, a senior Hamas official warned that if Israel's military operations continue in Rafah, there will be no ceasefire deal.
If the aggression continues, there will be no ceasefire because Israelis are the ones attacking and shooting. This agreement, which the movement agreed to, represents the minimum that responds to the demands of our people and our resistance.
Amid the ongoing fighting between Israel and Hamas, the White House has confirmed that discussions on negotiations have resumed in Cairo, Egypt, and that CIA Director Bill Burns is there. While saying that they should be able to close the remaining gaps, the national security spokesman added that the U.S. will do everything to support the process. In a separate briefing, the White House spokesperson made it clear that Washington does not want to see a major operation taking place in Rafah, and that it wants to see a comprehensive plan from Israel to protect civilians who have sought refuge there. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
In Russia, Vladimir Putin has begun his fifth term in office with claims of a will to work with the West, provided it's on equal footing. Lee Seung-jae covers his remarks.
Tuesday marked the beginning of another 6 years in office for Russian President Vladimir Putin, with this inauguration ceremony taking place in Moscow. His fifth term in office comes amid fierce criticism from the West amid the prolonged war in Ukraine. During his inauguration speech, Putin expressed willingness to hold talks with the West, but only on equal terms.
Dialogue, including on issues of security and strategic stability, is possible, but not from a position of force. Without any arrogance, snobbishness, feeling of one's own exclusiveness, but only as equals, respecting each other's interests.
Putin also stressed that the country's state, public, and political system must remain strong and resistant to any challenges and threats in order to maintain the stable development, unity, and independence of Russia. The Russian leader also vowed to grow Russia into the world's fourth largest economy by 2030. The ambitious goal comes as Putin signed a decree that sets national development goals for 2030 and beyond on the day of his inauguration. In the decree, Putin called for Russia's GDP growth to be above the global average, while increasing research and development costs to 2% of GDP by 2030, raising the ranking of R&D spending compared to economic size to within the world's top 10. Meanwhile, South Korea's ambassador to Russia, Lee Do-hoon, attended the inauguration. A South Korean government official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that Lee's participation was decided after careful consideration of various pending bilateral issues and the need to manage bilateral relations with Moscow. His visit also came despite the boycott of Western countries amid the protracted war in Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And North Korea's Kim Jong-un has sent a congratulatory letter to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. According to the regime's state media on this Wednesday, the letter was delivered through the Russian embassy in Pyongyang. A similar letter was sent back in March by Kim following news of Putin's re-election, in which the former is said to have highlighted the importance of closer cooperation. The two leaders met for a rare summit last September in Russia. North Korea's propaganda chief Kim Ki-nam has died. The North state-run media said he passed away on Tuesday due to old age and multiple organ dysfunction. He was 94 years old. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un paid tribute to the deceased early Wednesday morning. The North media also said the regime's leader will lead the state funeral committee for Kim Ki-nam, who will be buried on Thursday. Kim spent decades heading propaganda events, idolizing the leadership inheritance system within the ruling Kim family. He visited Seoul in 2009 to attend the state funeral of former South Korean President Kim Dae-jung. Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a three-country tour of Europe, his first state visit to the continent in 5 years. While there, his message looks to be directed towards the U.S. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Yoon-ji explains more.
France was Xi Jinping's first stop on his first trip to Europe in 5 years. As the two countries seek to mend ties after relations strained over trade disputes and Beijing's support for Russia, the two leaders highlighted the importance of a stable relationship.
This year marks the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and France. 60 years is a jiazi in the traditional Chinese calendar, which means inheriting the past and opening up the future.
The France-China relationship is steeped in history and features mutual respect and mutual trust. I believe it can play a useful role beyond bilateral relations and, to a large extent, promote EU-China relations and world stability.
Experts say Xi's tour appears to be aimed at weakening coordination between the U.S. and Europe amid the growing rivalry between Washington and Beijing. In fact, China's Global Times, an English-language newspaper under the Chinese Communist Party's flagship newspaper, The People's Daily, said in an editorial that the two countries agreeing to enhance agricultural cooperation during Xi's visit to France may offer valuable lessons for the U.S. It warned that the future of agricultural trade between Washington and Beijing depends on the willingness of the U.S. to engage in constructive dialogue. After wrapping up his trip in France, Xi headed to more Beijing-friendly countries, Serbia and Hungary, widely seen as an attempt to exploit differences within European nations towards Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Xi arrived in Serbia on Tuesday, marking the 25th anniversary of the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Serbia, when a U.S. strike accidentally hit the compound during NATO's air campaign against Serbian forces occupying Kosovo. Upon Xi's visit, Serbian communists hung banners to welcome him that read, "Kosovo is Serbia, Taiwan is China," supporting Beijing's One China policy. Xi's last stop will be Hungary, the first EU member to join China's Belt and Road Development Program, before he wraps up his 6-day tour on May 10th. Bae Yoon-ji, Arirang News.
Overseas shipments of Korean cars hit a fresh high in April amid greater demand for green cars and SUVs in the North American market. Lee Soo-jun takes us closer look.
South Korea's auto exports reached a new monthly high in April. Data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Wednesday showed that the value of car exports stood at $6.8 billion, topping the previous record set in November last year. This is up 10.3% compared to April the previous year. And the cumulative value of exports for the January to April period rose 4.7% on year to some $24 billion, also a record high for that period. The ministry mostly attributed the rise in car exports to the high demand for eco-friendly cars and SUVs, especially in North America. By region, the value of outbound shipments to North America was the highest, rising more than 36% compared to the previous year. The export value of eco-friendly vehicles surged more than 11% on year to $2.29 billion, smashing the previous record set in March last year. This was led by a surge in the value of outbound shipments of hybrid car exports in April, which jumped a whopping 55% compared to the previous year. Domestic production levels were also up 3.5% on year, with over 390,000 units manufactured in April, the most produced in a single month since March last year, partly due to there being one more working day compared to April last year. And while overall domestic sales dropped 5.5% compared to the previous year, the high demand for hybrid vehicles was also seen domestically as well, as sales surged 35% on year. The Trade Ministry says that its auto export target for this year is $75 billion. As part of its plans to reach this goal, it will allocate some $320 million this year and $1.4 billion over the next 5 years into automotive technology development in partnership with the private sector. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea is looking to integrate artificial intelligence into various industries to further boost manufacturing and production. On Tuesday, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy unveiled a plan to invest more than 100 billion Korean won this year, or over $73 million to establish autonomous manufacturing plants using AI by 2030. It hopes that this will boost production by 20% of current levels, as robots presently used in production lines are limited to undertaking simple repetitive tasks. The automobiles, electronics, machinery, and textile sectors are likely to benefit from this project as they integrate more advanced forms of AI into manufacturing. South Korea has been working with Indonesia to jointly develop the KF-21 fighter jet by 2026. But with Indonesia not being able to make financial contributions on time, South Korea hinted at accepting Indonesia's recent offer to significantly reduce its share of the payment. Our defense correspondent Kim Jong-un explains.
South Korea seems likely to accept Indonesia's recent proposal to cut back its financial contributions to the joint KF-21 fighter jet development project. The two countries had agreed to jointly develop the KF-21 from 2015 to 2026, with the South Korean government covering 60%, the manufacturer Korea Aerospace Industries contributing 20%, and Indonesia contributing another 20%. The expected total amount in investment was approximately 8.1 trillion won. However, Indonesia has offered to cut its payment to about a third of the original amount. This means instead of 1.6 trillion won or $1.2 billion due by 2026, the Indonesian government would only pay about 600 billion won.
We are reviewing measures in line with our national interests, considering the timely development of the KF-21 fighter jet, the impact on defense resources, and defense industry exports.
The Defense Acquisition Program Administration explained that the offer would be accepted under the condition of providing Jakarta with fewer technology transfers. If the proposal is approved, South Korea will need to secure an additional 1 trillion won or $732 million. However, the agency said the amount has been reduced by half through cost reductions that were made during the development process. The decision is set to be finalized in late May to prevent any delays in the jet's development project. Indonesia's commitment to the project has long been questioned as it missed payment deadlines, contributing just around 300 billion won so far. The proposal comes amid an ongoing probe into alleged attempts by Indonesian engineers to steal the jet's technology from Korea Aerospace Industries. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
As a walkout among trainee doctors extends beyond 3 months, concern is growing about next year's supply of personnel to hospitals. In response, the government has proposed to allow limited permission for foreign licensed doctors to practice in Korea. Choi So-young has this report.
The medical crisis is growing as the collective walkout by trainee doctors and leaves of absence taken by medical students has lasted for almost 3 months. The medical authorities are concerned that there will be a shortage of new doctors next year, as there won't be enough to meet the current annual quota of 3,058 doctors per year graduating from medical schools. Also, junior trainee doctors won't be able to take specialist exams the following year if they are absent for more than 3 months. The authorities said around May 20th as the deadline for these doctors to return to their hospitals. Within the emergency response system, doctors with foreign licenses will be able to provide medical services here with the approval from the Health Ministry. But this will be limited to when the healthcare alert level reaches serious as it is now due to the walkout. The Health Ministry gave official notice of a revision to the medical law on Wednesday, stating this was to address the shortage of doctors that is creating a healthcare gap. It added that the move was to protect the health and lives of people as the dispute over increasing the medical school enrollment quota continues to escalate. The ministry will accept opinions on the revision up until May 20th, while an exact implementation date has yet to be determined. Meanwhile, the academic board at Busan National University, 320 kilometers south of Seoul in Busan, decided not to revise its internal regulations on increasing its medical school quota. The board said that, as there was no social consensus regarding the increase, it would keep its number of new students at the current level. The Education Ministry expressed regret over this, as the majority of university medical schools had already completed changes to their regulations.
While other universities have either completed or are smoothly progressing with a revision of their regulations, the ministry regrets the situation at Busan National University. The Education Ministry urges the university to complete the regulatory revision process, following its demand for an increase in medical school enrollment.
The ministry warned that if the university fails to revise its regulations, it could face a suspension from medical school admissions in 2025. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
It's been 2 years since Cheongwade, the former presidential office, also referred to as the Blue House, was transformed into a cultural landmark open to the public. Now, to celebrate this occasion, the Culture Ministry and the Cheongwade Foundation are hosting a concert called Blue House that blends diverse genres such as traditional Korean music as well as jazz and video art. It'll take place at the main building every Wednesday at 8 p.m. starting tonight until July 10th. In Seoul today, the blue and clear skies returned for the first time in 4 days. The sun shined brightly throughout the day, but it might be a little chilly after the sun goes down. If you're going out late with your family for Parents' Day today, you might want to wear a jacket. Tomorrow, high waves will rise on the east coast, the south coast areas of Gyeongsang-namdo province, and the coastal areas of Jeju Island, pushing strongly beyond coastal roads and breakwaters. Please refrain from approaching waterfronts. Tomorrow there will be clear skies across the country. Until the morning, it will be a little chilly, similar to today. Seoul will start off at 11 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon and Daejeon 9 degrees. Daily highs will move up to over 20 everywhere, making huge temperature swings. On Saturday, it is expected to start raining all over the country and continue until Sunday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.